What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Scene Snobs Friday Night Showcase. As always, we're here, we're alive, we're doing it. And just so you guys know, this is my talk show. This is where I bring on people from all walks of life, artists, filmmakers, movie aficionados and fans, musicians, everybody really, like just interesting people I want to have on the show, definitely. So tonight, I am joined by a guest. We've had him on the show before, Mr. Trevor Stottlemeyer. Awesome guy. And man, the dude knows his movies. And I love talking to him because he's like an encyclopedia of movie knowledge that just goes so far. And, I always like to learn. So, without further ado, I'm going to bring him on. Excuse my camera. I might be checking the camera out because it's getting a little crazy, but I want to bring Trevor on first. So without further ado, my guest, Mr. Trevor Stottlemeyer. We'll give him a few seconds to get situated. And Trevor, what's up, buddy?
Greetings. Let me turn you up just a little bit here.
All right.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. You are good.
Having trouble hearing you here. 1 second.
Oh.
Video. Let's see here. Why is your sound so low?
Oh, I don't know why I'm low. It seems like I'm
speakers. That's right. Huh, interesting. Let's hear 1 second. Microphone. Wait, hold that thought. This is gonna make a big difference. Talk to me now.
How's it going, buddy?
1 second. Again.
How you doing tonight?
That is so much better. We can hear each other. Good evening. Thank you so much. I'm doing well.
I am flickering. My webcam has decided to be a pain in the butt today, so I'm going to try and endure it. But if I can't, I may have to go to non-camera just in case. But
that's fine. That's fine.
I will enjoy our conversation. And we actually started talking about this maybe about a month ago.
Yeah.
We gave each other some recommendations, and we said we're going to set out, we're going to watch them, and then we're going to come in and we're going to talk about them and
see what's going on with them. Yep.
I got to tell you, man, you blew me away with yours. Absolutely. And
I've really enjoyed revisiting. It was the first time I watched Kansas City Confidential, and I was pleasantly surprised. I'm not a humongous noir lover, and that was exceptional. And The Killing, it's where Stanley Kubrick really starts blossoming. So,
absolutely, and that's always the reason because I wanted to give you because we were talking film noir on my end, and I wanted to give you Kansas City Confidential goes down as one of my favorites because it's we see it a lot more now, but back then you didn't see that type of tale too much.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I was like, I hope he'll be interested in this one. Especially considering it was like a B type movie when it came out. But I wanted to give you something like, I wanted to give you The Killing because The Killing always stands out to me in Kubrick. Like, it doesn't for a lot of people, but for me, it has always stood out as just a really good movie.
Well, it's when the ball starts rolling, because I am not a huge fan of Killer's Kiss the year before. I think it's where The Killing has a lot of tropes and stereotypes of the noir, the narration and everything, where Killer's Kiss, it's almost too paint by numbers. But you gotta remember, you have Killing, and the year after that, Paths of Glory. I mean, he just went pow.
Yeah, that's 100%. And that's why I think I like The Killing so much. And you're right, how it's kind of sandwiched in. Paths of Glory is such a different movie, and he always made something different. Mm-hmm. But The Killing seems like so very timely for him. I don't know if that makes sense.
Oh, yes, it does.
Because everything that he made always kind of seemed like to transcend its time. Mm-hmm. But not The Killing. The Killing, it seemed like he made something that fit right in the mold of the era it was made.
Almost in certain ways, kind of the final word of noir.
Mm-hmm.
He did his noir film, Killer's Kiss, and then The Killing came along, and he perfected, or with Jim Thompson, who is, I've not read a lot of Jim Thomas, but what little I've read, very dark stuff. So he brings a source material that is so already film noir, and you make that heart even darker. And one thing I wanted to ask you, Meg, when we're talking about these movies, are you assuming that people have seen them and it's okay to give spoilers, or are we?
Oh, 100%.
Okay,
I
good.
follow a very strict rule here where if it's older than 2 or 3 years, you're kind of on your own. Like
Okay.
spoilers. Like, you know, I don't actively try to spoil things for people, but like I feel like movies like this, like for me, there's always some certain types of movies that just I don't care if it's spoiled. Like I'm still gonna see it because it's just that good of a movie.
It's the experience versus,
Yes,
the
great way to put it.
the payoff you want for spending $14 for a movie ticket.
Exactly. And all four of these movies, especially one that wages of fear that you recommended to me, like they're movies you should see. So regardless of whether they're spoiled or not, like you're going to get something from them. It's not just how good the stories are. So yeah, I think, and the Wages of Fear just blew me away, and I can't wait. I've been all
I
week.
wanted to talk a little bit about the, it's interesting because the ones I picked, there are elements of remakes.
Yeah.
That are really interesting. So I'll let you go in the direction you want to go. Where do you want to start?
Well, let's keep on my recommendations first since we started there, and I really love to hear just kind of like what some of your favorite aspects of them were, or if you didn't like them or how it worked.
Well, both I adored. The Killing for 56 is it's so. I don't like to use this term a lot, but I'm going to use it a fair amount this evening. There is a nihilism to The Killing. Things just don't go bad. It's a brick wall in that. If you would like to give everybody a little bit of background about exactly what's going on in The Killing.
So The Killing is a heist movie that so the character Johnny was Johnny Clay, correct?
Yep.
I believe it was Johnny Clay. He's getting out of the business. He got a fiance. He's a career criminal, and he wants to do one final score to get a big payout so he can leave with his fiance. So he puts together a team. There's a wrestler in there, sharpshooter. There's a crooked cop, and one of the tellers they're going to rob a racetrack, and one of the tellers at the racetrack is in on it as well. Well, everything seems to be going to plan. The racetrack teller decides to tell his wife. He's trying to like impress her because she's not very impressed by him. And when he tells his wife, and she figures out that, oh, this is actually happening, she plans to dupe him with her lover. And steal the 2 million that they're going to get right out from under them. Things go haywire. Johnny's got to go on the run after everything because the heist goes off perfectly. And then if I remember correctly, it's the teller that gets robbed by his wife.
Yes.
Well, the wife's boyfriend.
Wife's boyfriend that jumps in at the wrong time.
Yeah, that's for sure. And the reason I did not watch it because my plan was to watch everything all week this week, and then I said if I watch it, I'm watching it from my perspective. I'm watching these two movies that I really care about from my perspective. But I'd rather, I remember them well. I've watched them within the past year and a half. So I do remember them pretty well, but I wanted to hear what you thought and see what kind of awakens from me, if that makes sense. That's why.
Revisiting the film, one of the first things is this motley crew of characters, and there's wonderful ensemble pieces. Now, I don't have it, but the character that is his wife is the one that double crosses everybody. That actor is gold. He's one of the great character actors of all times, and I don't know his name. I'll be honest.
Oh, that's a good question. Let me look that up while we're talking about it. I want to say Cook is his last name. For some reason, that's standing out to me.
Mhm.
Alicia Cook or something like that, or he played somebody else.
I know he's
But
in it.
yeah,
He's one of the great character actors of all time, and there's every trope of bad guy. There is the worrying bad guy. There's the tough as nails. There's the wrestler. There's the Johnny Cool, um, and how everything is. One of the things I loved about this movie, and this is definitely something that you can put toward the greatness of Kubrick, is it's a non-linear plot, and it also influenced films eventually by Tarantino, things like this, that you're hearing or seeing what's going on multiple times, so you're getting different characters' perspectives
hmm,
on the same actions, and that's what really makes it special, in my opinion, that makes it that Kubrick does a noir that transcends all other noirs. He didn't just make the probably one of the most downtrodden, the end in which your Johnny character is so close, so close. Can I tell them exactly what happens?
oh yeah. Well, I mean, they get away. They essentially get away, not
Yeah.
not fully. And so Johnny and his fiance get to the airport. He doesn't fasten the suitcase that he buys to hide the 2 million in properly, and everything kind of just goes haywire. And I love that ending when they're trying to get the cab, and she's just kind of like run, like, and he knows, he's like, what's the point?
Yeah.
Like, I'll
I'm
just
I'm I'm finished. And the tension just in the scene in which he's at the baggage counter and he wants to take it on the plane. And it's just there's this beautiful tension just in that. And
yeah.
then that cops there, he's created an issue. And then you see all those bills fly off when it's a cat, if I remember correctly.
Mhm.
Everything was fine except for it was either a cat or a dog that gets loose. If it wasn't for that little critter, they would have gotten away.
Yeah.
And then they just walk through and he's standing there and the cops are there and he just resigns to it's over. And
Yeah.
that was brilliant.
And did you get the feel of like almost sort of a beauty at the end of it too? Like he was trying to get this done so he could be completely done with the life for her.
Mhm.
And that's why if he ran, he realized he'd never actually have her. So
Yes.
I always take away like a beauty to that. Like he's still not willing. Like it's her. That's the
Mhm.
prize. That's the not prize, but like the ultimate.
That's
That's
comfort.
yeah. That's his MacGuffin. That's his
Yes,
personal MacGuffin in this.
exactly.
And so I always like that. He's like, all right, I'm just willing to do the time. Like, there's no point in running now. So like that gives me a little bit of hope because after everything and him almost getting away, but finally realizing he's going to jail. Um, there's still that they can be together in the end, when he
Mhm.
gets out, because he's not going forever. So, it's you could definitely play that part up. But one of the things I will say about all four of these films that I think work well is there is the tension and frustration that you can feel throughout all four of them.
Mhm.
It's beautiful filmmaking all the way through.
Mhm.
And
It's
I will tell you just because we talked about that, and I want to talk about weight. I've just been dying to talk about Wages of Fear and Island of Lost Souls, but the Wages of Fear, I felt every aspect of that movie.
Mhm.
The 2 hours and 30 minutes that this movie is, that's worth it. It does not feel like 2 hours and 30 minutes.
No, no.
Um,
And I mean, before I say anything, one thing I will say as a lead up to it is up till 1953, there had never been a film as suspenseful as that film. If you were in 1953 and you wanted suspense, you wanted thrills, you wanted the edge of your seat, Clouseau gave it to you for
yeah.
the best for at that time.
And another thing about all these movies, with the exception maybe Kansas City Confidential, but it definitely rates on there. They are kind of tragic movies in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Like each main character there's sort of a tragedy to their lives in each one, some way more so than others.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think that's why these movies, all four of these movies, like really work, these recommendations. And talking about the Wages of Fear, like I was shocked at the ending.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like, I really did feel like everything's all right, and even because I thought it was a red herring when he was kind of driving the truck around. And, you saw the cliff, and you saw him celebrating, but you're just like, they can't do this. It was like, they can't do it. But it makes perfect sense why they did it, and they actually had to do it that way. They had to kill off this character.
Yeah.
But part of me was just like, no, there's no way they can't do it.
And they kill off a character, and you have these immense feelings toward a character that is kind of the butt of a joke. That character is kind of very cowardice in certain ways. Comes on that he's more than he actually is, and you really feel for him, and you also see this camaraderie that came from him even being the butt of the other guy's jokes.
Yeah.
That when Yves Montan's character, is heartbroken by this. He is just completely heartbroken that Joe's dying, and when he dies, you mentioned Kansas City Confidential. That's a tragic film, also.
Yeah.
The only thing I can say that I didn't groove on with that film was I felt that the ending seemed a little tagged on.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just very common for that time period. Anything, it was Hollywood, after, once the Hays Code took into full effect, there were a lot of films that you went, oh, that's great. The ending seemed tagged on. But no, that's another situation of very downtrodden and bad situations, and a police inspector who is kicked off the job and is actually more involved than you think. That one, that was really so well done, because I didn't catch on to it until the last third of the film. I thought that was interesting, and then it just lets you know it. It's like, oh, just get a little bit of a treat of you might be catching on to it, but it's just not enough for you to spoil the surprise of who actually is the ringleader of that heist.
Yeah, and oh man, it blows you away too when you like. I mean, it's not. I shouldn't say blows you away, but like, I think it's just well crafted in the sense that like you really don't see it coming, and for like this B film noir movie to put together something like this, did it feel reminiscent of like Reservoir Dogs to you, or
Oh yeah,
kind of The Killing too? Like Killing, I would say, was more inspirational towards like Ocean's 11, even though Ocean's 11 I know is a remake, but I felt like the remakes of Ocean's 11 were more of a send up to like movies like The Killing and other heist movies like that, in a way. But like, yeah, when I watch Kansas City Confidential, I always think like of Reservoir Dogs or other movies like that, like Heat and stuff like that. Because it feels like it's ahead of its time with that type of
they
story.
both wrote a playbook for how you go about introducing and sustaining characters in heist movies that still played today. I'd say both those films did a beautiful job of doing that.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, before that, you had, the Cagney movies and stuff like that did that in their own way. And then the noir films, you had to pick two that were, in my opinion, extremely important and had lasting effects.
Mm-hmm. And how about that very young Lee Van Cleef?
I was just about ready to bring up as a Romano, right?
Yep.
I think is Romano, the wonderfully sleazy.
He does.
He plays sleazy well.
he echoes, and such a young role for him echoes like what he's going to be throughout his career in a beautiful way.
If I don't know if Bob Guccione had been mixed with Steve Buscemi, it would have reminded me of Lee Van Cleef in that role.
He does look like a weasel in that, doesn't he?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But he does play such a great little like a role like that. Like, and John Payne, I thought played really well.
Yep.
Which is sort of against type. He wasn't really a film noir guy. I mean,
No.
he's most famous for Miracle on 34th Street.
Mm-hmm.
And most of his other movies, he was like, you know,
he's not a baby-faced person, but there's a kind of a wholesomeness to him,
which I thought played well into
Yeah.
being framed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like he could play the sap in a way. In a weird way, he reminds me of a young Tom Hanks. Like if they ever did this movie in the 80s, like I could see Tom Hanks playing the role.
Well, that he was to be that kind of character when he's given the money to go to Tijuana. Was that the guy that saved you in Hiroshima? Yes, it was. So you're already supposed to be this guy is an upstanding citizen, but he won't let anybody step on him.
Yeah. Oh man, it did such a wonderful and just for a film noir from that aspect, to tell such an original tale, because film noirs are becoming pretty stale by that point.
It's later.
Like, yeah, this is 52 or 53, I think it came out. And for that time, I mean,
it was 52. Yeah.
Yeah, 52.
I think I remember. And then also The Killing is 56, right?
Yeah, I always put the spin on The Killing, though. More heist than film noir.
Yeah.
But also it's Stanley Kubrick.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like if Stanley Kubrick's going to do something, it's not going to be bad.
No.
Some aspect of it is always going to be some sort of magnificence to it. So, like The Killing, I felt like it is going to go into history books just because. But like Kansas City Confidential, I think I found this one with a buddy of mine. He bought a film noir DVD, like 25 movies in like a $10 case, you know, and this was one of them. And we went on a tear of watching film noirs, and this was our favorite, and like we watched it over and over again. So that was like how I discovered that.
You know, it's funny, I don't watch as many film noirs as I should, and I'd always heard about Kansas City Confidential. So I'm like, okay, well, I'll find it on Comcast or I'll find it on Amazon. Not easy. I finally found it on YouTube.
Oh, okay. Wow.
And that's how I eventually ended up watching it. And it held up nicely to watch it on my computer on YouTube. And it was, I mean, I was sucked right in. I was, and it was wonderful to see Lee Van Cleef, play a character like that, because he did over time play a lot of characters of that nature. But we sometimes automatically put him in the Western, character because he's known so much for those.
And yeah, I'll tell you, for me, Lee Van Cleef reminds me a lot of, in his career, of like a Lee Marvin. And what I mean is, like, when they were young, they weren't really there. They weren't at the point. Like, you could see where their career trajectory was going and what type of characters they were playing.
Yes.
And then when it got there and they kind of realized it and said, this is the character I will excel at, they ran with it, man.
Yeah.
And they
became typecast, and they're like, okay, hire me.
And it's kind of like almost I equate it to like a Danny Trejo, like,
oh yeah,
he's the guy now, like, and I one of the best quotes I've ever heard from Danny Trejo was, all he reads in these scripts is a Danny Trejo type, and he's like, well, what do you want to type for? Hire me. I want to work. So like that, I think that, like, they are the ultimate, like, they were movie stars, but character actor movie stars, like that. And that's just always how it kind of came off to me. And when I would watch them, and watching this movie, especially as a young man, as Lee Van Cleef was a young man, and to see, like, yeah, this is the guy he's going to be playing. Like, this is who he is. And he excels at it.
I'm curious to ask you this. See, there is about a roughly around a 6 year, 5 to 6 year ish difference between the two films. Do you think that Kansas City had much of an influence on what Kubrick did with The Killing?
I I don't know, but I could see it, because I could also see Kubrick was, and this is what I do give him a lot of credit for as a filmmaker. I mean, he he researched everything
Hmm.
he did, and I always thought that was beautiful in a way, because like you get a lot of people who don't, a lot of filmmakers who don't watch like the genres that they're making,
Hmm.
or if they watch them, they're not watching them for the right purposes. Like Kubrick studied other people's movies,
Yeah.
so I could see him like seeing something like this and saying I could do better,
Hmm.
and like,
Or falling in love with something and just by chance applying it to, whatever he's working on.
yeah, and even like the I can do better. It's like I think all filmmakers sort of have that in a way where, good filmmakers, I will say,
Hmm.
they have that sense of like they'll watch something that they love and they'll say I
Hmm.
can do better, and they'll try. That will be their goal, is to do better than that, even though they love it. And they may succeed, they may not succeed. Kubrick, of course, if this was the case, did. I mean, because The Killing was just great. The Killing is proof that I wish he had, proof for me that I wish he had just done more of that,
Hmm.
or at least revisited it again.
I always thought he did extremely well in character study films.
Yes.
And some of his films don't necessarily go that route. But when they do, they're really, I mean, Clockwork Orange is a beautiful example. It is a character study film. Um,
Did I
The
ever?
Killing is very much.
I'm sure I haven't told you, but like I have to. This is fangirl moment for me. I have to tell you.
Okay.
Malcolm McDowell. When I went to Full Sail for college, and Malcolm McDowell came down for the Florida Film Festival, which I was working,
Ooh,
and I got on as his assistant while he was there.
very
So
nice.
like, I would just like, set up all the stuff, set up his tables, things like that, and just like get him whatever he needed. One of the most wonderful human beings you've ever met.
Hmm.
And they had a bus, the school had a bus for him where they would take him all around the town and stuff like that, wherever he needed to go. And my directing teacher, who I was good friends with, brought me on the bus to, kind of introduce me and get ready in the beginning. And so I sat down and we're getting ready to leave to go do a signing for something. And he's sitting there and he's checking his phone. And I know he knew it. He wasn't looking at any of us. He wasn't doing anything. He wasn't talking to any of us. He was just looking at his flip phone, and he starts whistling Singing in the Rain. And my directing teacher and I are like, this is amazing. Should we say anything? Like, no, but I knew he knew we were such fans. Like, how some people could just
Yeah.
feel like, oh, I'm being looked at, or like,
Mhm.
and he knows why. He did that, and I was just like, oh my god, this is so amazing. He was a terrific guy, and that's why I always laugh and I very rarely do, but I watch Halloween 2, the Rob Zombie movie,
Hmm.
and he's such an asshole to everybody.
Yes.
I'm like, no, that's not him in any way, shape, or form.
No. I've always heard wonderful things about him.
But that's
So.
why you just reminded me of that when you said Clockwork Orange, because it's such an amazing movie. But the Sing in the Rain always comes up, and I just had to share that. I promise you, I was not name dropping. I just thought it would be.
Oh, that I would have loved to have had something like that. That's
It's one of those moments where like he's like, these guys will get a kick out of that.
and he's got to know somebody you admire like that has that kind of sense of humor about
Yes.
themselves. That's just is wonderful because you have situations where people are just like, well, I'm known for that. I don't want to have to deal with it.
Yeah. Well, what he reminds me of? He reminded me of that whole week and of Captain Picard.
Okay.
I know I have Star Trek coming up soon. I swear it's not a coincidence. He's just stiff, but like you could tell, like if he's like nice, and he would, if he needed to be curt, he could, but like, and he was like stiff upper lip type, but
Mhm.
like soft spoken, but like he'll talk to you if is that type, if that makes sense.
Totally.
Like,
That makes
he
total
was,
sense.
and maybe that's all Englishmen, but he definitely reminded me of that. I was like, oh man, no, why'd you kill the captain?
I mean, this is tell you, but I just in itself, if you looked at the British cinema of Malcolm McDowell, you could do like an entire month of these.
Oh
Just
yeah.
had to put that in there. All our subject, but
Maybe we need to do another episode of Malcolm McDowell.
maybe just one on Malcolm McDowell and Lindsay Anderson films. So
Oh, yes.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, hey, listen, I'm always up for that. Like, you're the movie aficionado. That's why I like talking to you, because I always learn something.
I can BS pretty well.
But yeah, no, I mean, you these movies though, these four movies. So Island of Lost Souls, because I feel like we're not giving that enough love. Oh,
Wait, was it?
by all means,
Give me a
please.
hug. Hello.
Hey,
Hi. Hello.
how you doing, pal?
Night night. Okay. Island of Lost Souls. My kids always make a photo bomb, so it's just a thing.
If my kids were here, they would too.
No. Island of Lost Souls from 1932. It is a film version of the H.G. Wells novella Island of Lost Souls. Basic plot behind that is you have a gentleman who is brought to shore of this island that is being run by a lunatic scientist named Dr. Moreau. And on this island, he is doing experiments with animals with the hope of creating humans from animals and also removing the beast flesh from them and controlling the beast flesh. And that also brings into concepts of vivisection and also even eugenics. And this is the basic concept behind Island of Lost Souls and Island of Dr. Moreau.
You know, I will. I gotta tell you this. This movie was again another one that was just way ahead of its time. Like just the way it was shot, it was so well acted. Charles Lawton did an amazing job in it. And Bela Lugosi, it surprised me because I was looking for Bela Lugosi and I'm like, who is he? And I missed him as the is the one that
Sayer of all.
Sayer of the, well, that makes sense, yeah, because he's the one.
Are we not man?
And in the end, like I was like, okay, there he is. Like I guess I missed him at first, but I was like, wow, it's like this is amazing to me because like Bela Lugosi is like has a top billing in this with Charles Lawton, and this is way before Dracula.
Yep.
So
well, it's interesting because that year, Lugosi was very busy. He had Murders from Rue Morgue. He had White Zombie. He had turned down the Frankenstein gig. And he then, because he felt that he should never have large amounts of makeup on. So when he got the chance to do this, he jumped at it. This is probably, in my opinion, 32 was probably the best year for him outside of Dracula. Because unfortunately that's a whole other monster. But no, Lawton is he's almost the quintessential pre-code actor in this. He is flamboyant, he is dastardly, he is evil, he is sarcastic. He gives you the willies.
Yeah.
And that is something that is truly amazing. And he does, in my opinion, to this day, has probably done the best Moreau in film.
Yes, I would agree with that wholeheartedly. They do such a fantastic job with this movie, and it's not too long of a movie, which I like because it gets right down to it, and it's weirdly like the story fits perfectly within that, I think, hour and 20 minutes or whatever the runtime is. But it's just like it's bing, bing, bing. Like they hit the beats just right, and Charles Lawton's character, just I'm saying his name because I want to. He needs full credit. Like everybody's listening, like, he deserves because he carries this movie so well.
Talking of Charles Lawton, one has to remember that the same year he did The Old Dark House, which is his first major role, was The Old Dark House that same year. He then went on to eventually direct Night of the Hunter. So you're talking about that same Charles Lawton who did insanely large numbers of films. So this is not just one of those like, oh, Charles Laughton, he does a great, no, this guy was, huge in Hollywood,
Yeah.
and, was a quintessential character actor.
Yeah, I forgot The Old Dark House was the same year as this, and that's
Yep.
such a great movie. I love that movie. So
Actually, a funny story about that I can tell you later, but keep going about Charles. It doesn't involve Charles, but it's about Old Dark House.
I definitely want to hear it because I love that movie. But yeah, no, but the Island of Lost Souls in London in the movie, like, there's something so tense about everything that happens in this movie, and again, it's tragic at the end when I forget her name, but the Panther. I think she was the Panther woman. Yeah,
Burke, Colleen Burke was her name.
She just, she's the love interest. She is the main love interest throughout the movie, and just to see her go, like, I mean, it has to happen. You get that. You can't save her. You can't bring her to civilization. It's just not going to happen. But to watch the whole, to see her die, and then as they're going away on the boat, to see the island burning was just epic for that time.
Well, the movie keeps moving. It doesn't stop. As soon as you are brought upon the boat in which Parker is, is he's brought onto, it is filled with animals, and you see the drunk captain hit Maling, and Maling is one of the animal men that Moreau has created. As soon as you see him hit him and he falls to the floor, the movie just keeps going from there. There is no stopping.
Yeah.
And it's a lean film. It doesn't shy away from a lot of the core themes of Dr. Moreau. There's definitely the original novella was actually written as a statement against vivisection. That was the intent behind the original novella. So that there's a lot pertaining to vivisection in the movie. There's a lot pertaining to colonialism in the movie. There are a lot of, these basic themes that really work in that tight hour and 20 minutes. As I said, it's a pre-code gem. I mean, Charles Laughton plays up the double entendres and things to the max, and then he continually references himself and directly references himself to God, because he does what he does because he wants to be like God. There is nothing like the feeling of God. This just blew censors' minds. It was even cut down roughly about 15 to 20 minutes. So in one of the states that got the most cuts was Pennsylvania, because it was interesting. So at this time period, you had different cuts of the film, not just coming out of Hollywood or not just going to different countries. Different states did it. So you'd have a cut that played in Pennsylvania, you'd have a cut that played in Virginia, you'd have a cut that played in California, based on the individual state's standard. So this was prior to the Hays Code officially going into effect, because it wasn't effect 1930, I believe, but it wasn't till 34, and with the push the Catholic to this decency, that then it was, we need to take this seriously. Then the good old fun of not being as double entendre and more overt with the pre-codes kind of.
Well, I will say, I noticed some other themes, and tell me if I'm a little off base, but I was basing this more on like when the movie came out, and just maybe I was just trying to piece some things together, but I was getting the feel of the Depression era.
Yes.
Being into play there in the sense of like they're held down by authority. Like they're, like you said, there's that godlike figure, but like God was almost the one everybody was clinging to during that time. And, not to get religious, but like, especially like authority was looked at as godlike figures, like, or godly figures, like, and like he was just they followed the law, they followed the authority. That's what's said. This is how we do things. So I was kind of like thinking about those themes, and I was also thinking about after World War I, all the disfigurement of soldiers and like
Yes,
being,
yes, that's a biggie.
yeah, and I was just how they were treated like dogs, basically,
Mhm.
especially on a ship and things like that. And then like kind of be segregated away to hide away almost.
Mhm.
I was thinking about it along those lines of like, I wonder if they played in, and I want to talk
It
more about
did definitely. A lot of your horror films that were post World War One were insanely influenced by the war. Um, Anything James Whale touched was influenced by his participation in the war. Now, Earl C. Kenton, the director of Island of Lost Souls, I don't know his background specifically, but no, it seeped into pretty much every, not just horror film, but war film, or So yeah, you're on the right track completely. But then there's also that aspect of, so Lawton or Moreau has developed the law, to
it.
which he doesn't follow completely. And then you have the sayer of the law, who then there's a point in which they start going, well, why is the law the law? And if the law is the law, and you've done that, there's this wonderful, there's a lot about evolution, or actually de-evolution,
Yeah.
in Island of Lost Souls. I don't know if you got a chance to watch some of the extras that have been around by Island Lost Souls, but Devo was directly influenced by Island Lost Souls. They
Really?
actually did one of the first videos they ever did as Devo was a short film that referenced multiple times Island Lost Souls. So yeah, so you have these characters that are being transformed into humans by Moreau,
Mhm.
but there's always the stubborn beast flesh. The stubborn beast flesh always comes back. One of the really chilling scenes in the film has Burke's Panther Lady laying there with Moreau beside her, and he all but hits her, and he holds up her hand, and her nails are still that of a panther. It's not something you just really see right off the bat. You have to look. And that's where he makes that stubborn beast flesh reference.
Yes, no, that's a great point. I didn't even think about that till you just said it. So,
And then the House of Pain, House of Pain in itself, that has so many meanings.
oh,
That yet again is back to World War One. Um, any situation, involving incarceration and involving vivisection, or genocides of any kind, and torturing of any kind. The House of Pain was used to. It wasn't we are going to follow the law. It's a law. Well,
mhm.
yes, you're going to follow the law, because there's the House of Pain if you don't follow it, and well, guess what? I'm going to threaten you with the House of Pain either way. So it wasn't a respect for the law; there was a fear, and that's what makes Moreau's character, which is different from it's been decades since I read the novel, but it's very different than the novel. And like the Panther Lady who shows up in all the different versions does not exist in the novel from what I remember.
Mhm.
But no, that's the House of Pain is right frightening too. I mean, they take you into the House of Pain. You see him, you know, getting ready to cut up this dog man, and you see the ear, you see the side, and then you see that you've got these creations of Moreau literally climbing to keep the power going. And that's where he makes his statement about being God. I think something effective, like there is nothing that feels as good as feeling like you're God. Yet it's something else that got that pretty much that entire scene was one that was ended up in the cutting room floor on a lot of states. Now, Britain, I think, was only about 25 years ago, 25 to 30 years ago, that you actually could see in its entirety Island of Lost Souls in Britain.
I one thing I want to bring up about the movie too is I thought it was really telling in the movie, the gate,
Mhm.
his gate to his house, like, which is, you at the end, it's about it seems like it's about keeping them out. Like, you're never allowed to touch paradise.
Mm.
You're meant to be out of it. Like, only God gets to be here. Um, because he could leave it open, because before they showed up and before law was questioned, law was law.
Mhm.
So he was never in any danger. It's, and then by the end, when it's used as protection and they lock the gate, it's almost like God is stuck in his own paradise.
Mhm.
I felt that theme like while I was watching it too. I was like, wow, this is pretty, because like you said, the God theme is so huge in it.
The God theme and the Father theme are
Yes.
huge.
And also how there was no way in for them. They could never
Mhm.
figure out a way into his paradise unless he let them in. And except for he climbed a tree.
Yep.
He used the real God's natural,
Mhm.
that ability that he was given by Lawton's God, Moreau's God in the movie, but
Mhm.
uh, it was actual God's nature that helped him get into the home.
Mhm.
Which I don't know, so much. There's so many layers to this
Oh
movie.
yeah, well, it's a lot of fun about it. You mentioned the Panther woman who does show up in the other films that were based on Moreau, which this is not the first film that was based on Island of Dr. Moreau. There are two silent films, which I believe are lost, which I would love to see.
Yeah.
So this is not the first, but by most people's take, this is the best. This is the closest you're going to get to, Wells hated it. He despised it. He
Really?
was alive at the time it came out. He wanted nothing to do with it. He felt it was quote unquote salacious. It
You
was
know,
not what he was looking for.
but if you think about it too, his themes from when he wrote the book and how they're interpreted I mean, every theme in every book is always interpreted by the era that it's being read in,
Mm.
but for that time, it's very different probably from how he wrote it.
Yeah, because his intention was basically to make an extremely long pamphlet against vivisection,
Yeah.
and it was for a vivisection movement in Britain at the time. So that's an interesting thing in itself. There was a purposeful thing going on with the development of Island of Dr. Moreau for Wells. And it's interesting to see how it is grown into a life, of course, from, the novella to Island of Lost Souls to 77's Island of Dr. Moreau, which was Don Taylor with Burt Lancaster. Honestly, I think it was a boring movie. And then in 1996, pardon me, we had the Richard Stanley and John Frankenheimer monstrosity with Brando,
Yeah.
which I recently sat down because I don't know, for some reason I had decided I did not want to see it, even though I'd watched all documentaries and everything, and I love Richard Stanley. I just never wanted to watch it, and I sat down and watched it, thinking, hey, I'm going to enjoy this. It's going to no,
Yeah.
it
No, it's,
is just bad,
but
and
honestly, and I don't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry.
yeah,
But what kills those movies, because this is the only one I haven't seen
yeah,
that I knew of, and because I always found it interesting, an interesting tale, but um, this was the first time I've seen Island of Lost Souls, and going in and kind of realizing, oh, okay, this is the Island of Dr. Moreau. So it was the acting. It was the acting in all those other
yes,
movies that killed it, because the story is no problem, and if you are a good enough director, like the 32 version where it just is bing, 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 the story's always moving. We don't have any lulls. There's no acting. There's no over emoting or anything like in the Brando version. There's tons of
hmm
that.
yes.
There's some very slow aspects to that movie. You don't need those in this. Like, I
Mhm.
think it works so fast when you're, telling the tale and just going with it. And that's why I
Speaking of
work.
acting, not to, but real quick, you did a show on Freaks recently.
Oh, yes, we did.
Did
Yeah.
somebody look familiar to you? Leah
Uh,
Hyams, the female lead,
yeah.
not the
Where?
Panther lady.
Oh my God.
Same
Yes.
actress, yeah.
Oh, you know,
So
how crazy is that that she played such different roles? I didn't recognize her.
two considered the two most insane, in my opinion, or at least many people feel this way, of the 32 horror films as far
Yeah.
as free codes, and she was in both of them.
And they are, and they're so, it's crazy. I mean, the themes are so similar, but
Mm-hmm.
uh and and they're both so chilling of movies, but yeah, ultimately very differently. And she put two very different roles. I got to give her a lot of credit for that one.
Yep.
I did not realize that. Yeah, and going jumping back real quick to Wages of Fear, because I'm kind of comparing the two. When you're in that village in the beginning, it it's almost, I got the same feel from both movies. Like
Mm-hmm.
you just want off that island, but something's keeping you there. You know what I mean? Like
Yep.
um one is more physical type. He couldn't get off the island. He didn't have a boat, you know,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
whereas they didn't have money in the Wages of Fear. And but they both did a great job building up the frustrations. Like I felt the frustration in both. I felt the heat, especially in the Wages of Fear. Like, I
No
felt
pun
the,
intended.
yeah.
Yeah.
um, you feel every aspect and these movies both shine through perfectly for that, in my opinion. Like all of those things, like you, more so in Island of Lost Souls, it's not so much just frustration, and it's not so much the heat or anything like that. I would say it's more along the lines of the fear, like
Mm-hmm.
being somewhere where you're trapped and it's different,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where I kind of got that feel of, like, the soldiers coming home from World War I who are disfigured. Like they're coming home to this place that they know that they should feel like normal and safe in, but because they're different, they're not.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was their plight. Whereas the opposite here, like all of these creatures, this is their home. They're
Yep.
safe. They feel it. But he was such an outsider, and he looked so different, and he was just trying to fit in. But he did, like, there was always like a fear there. I felt
Mm.
from him, from
Well,
his
it's also they
character.
have to, it is their home, and they're
Yeah,
being pulled from their home literally to the house of pain, and then put back into their home totally different, and have to relearn how to exist in the same locale, very much like soldiers sometimes do,
yeah,
and
very
like soldiers many times, what's done to them mentally and physically, they definitely did not ask for that to be done to them.
hmm No,
So
I agree.
yeah, I think you're making connections to World War One and Isle of Lost Souls very, very keen.
Yeah, and I keep gravitating right back towards The Wages of Fear because it blew me away. It's just that
Yeah,
movie, out of all of these, was such just a beautifully done movie,
it
in
is.
every aspect.
It is nail biting, to use an over used term.
Yeah,
But one of the interesting things you mentioned about the village, and when it opens up, um, eh, you're never sure exactly in Clouseau's Wages of Fear versus, I have not read the book, so I'm not even going to bother even talk about the book. I'll be honest. Um, you don't know why your four main characters are there. You really don't. You just
mhm,
know they're there. They probably can't go anywhere else in the world. This is like the last stop in the world for whatever you've done.
yeah,
So, and this is also, there are a slew of other characters besides your main four guys who eventually go in the trucks. You're introduced to, but that's a whole other monster. So, what happens with Wages of Fear is there's the SOC, and the SOC is a United States owned oil organization in what many people feel is Venezuela. Maybe not, but that would make sense, the amount of oil. And it is in a Latin American country. There's an accident. There's a huge oil fire, killing and um, maiming numerous members of the village, which is about 300 miles away. Now, the only way to actually get rid of this humongous fire is to blow it out like a candle. And how are you going to do it? Well, you have to blow it up. And by blowing it up, what do they have? Nitroglycerin. They have a lot of it. The only problem, getting it from where it's kept to 300 miles where it needs to be used. That is the problem. And over insane and intense terrain, how are you going to do it? Well, this is where it gets kind of creepy. So the SOC sits around in a boardroom. They sit around and they go, well, how are we going to do this? We're going to stick it on trucks. You're crazy. No, we're going to stick it on trucks. No, the union's like, we don't even worry about the union because we'll just have those people from that village that do nothing with lives or looking to escape, that think life is nothing at this point. We'll wave some money at them and they'll jump on it. They don't care. Life is cheap. And that's
Yeah.
really frightening. What they do, they come out in not droves, but a fair number, and actually fight over who is going to, have a seat. There are 4 seats, 2 trucks, and these trucks are not, in good condition. And the thing with the nitroglycerin, it can go off at any time, and it is the littlest jarring the wrong way. So then you have the rest of the film in which they are on these trucks, and we're not just talking like, they have like a can of nitroglycerin. We're talking like 20 like full cans of nitroglycerin per truck.
Yeah.
They try to get to the fire site quickly, and there's just all these different obstacles that even if you weren't carrying explosive would make you like have like sweaty palms watching somebody have to do it. So that's the basis of Wages of Fear.
Yeah. And I have to say, the 4 characters, because they team them up 2 by 2 in each truck.
Mm-hmm.
The 4 characters, I mean, they do a great job, because in the beginning I'm like, wow, why are they showing so much before they actually get to the tense parts?
Mm-hmm.
And you do realize once they get the final 4 that they choose, like, oh, all right, like these 4, there's a reason they're the stars, and they built up perfectly the stories between all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And especially the character of Joe,
Mm-hmm.
not being picked and getting his way in, and then like you think,
Which is pretty dastardly.
yeah,
I mean, Joe isn't just kind of a coward; he's kind of a sick individual, too. But no, they do. This is great. Luigi's a beautiful example.
Yeah.
Of Luigi, for all intent and purpose, has lung cancer, and he's told, well, maybe you have 6 months to live. So between Luigi, Bimba, Joe, and Mario, this is a crew of not losers, but people who have no real reason to better their lives. They do want to, it's referenced multiple times about how much money you would need to actually illegally get a passport and on a plane to wherever the next largest area might be. This is brought up numerous times and always shot down. But there's an important part of Wages of Fear to remember, that even though these 4 guys are given a chance to not just make enough money, but a lot more money than what they need, at the core, none of them think they're going to make it. They're doing it because they have nothing else to do.
Yeah.
They kind of want to have that thing in the back. Well, at least we did this. It's kind of a bravery thing. It's kind of a, if we're going to go out, we're going to do something, that, I can say I've done it. And I mentioned the term nihilism before. Wages of Fear is one of the most nihilistic films ever made, because when it comes down to it, these guys have nothing to live for. The SOC views them as having nothing to live for. Other characters we aren't even going to talk about. You have to watch the movie to really feel At the beginning of the film, there's this character that it seems very collateral, but something happens to him that, really is sobering. Um, in the end, um, yeah, I mean, Mario survives, but he's totally a shell of a human being. What this would do to anybody. And yet again, it brings up, Waves of Fear might in certain ways be one of the most amazing war films ever made.
Yeah, it's a great point. I will say, like, the character, and it's funny for any video gamers out there. Mario and Luigi are in the movie.
Yes.
They're roommates, and they're reversed because Luigi looks like Mario, and
Mm-hmm.
Mario looks like Luigi. I had to say that for all my pop culture guys. So I will say, when it comes to this movie, though, like, you're right, Mario is like a shell of who he is, because even when the only goal he has is that ticket, is
Mm-hmm.
that metro ticket, his way out, his way, get back to France, take the metro. I mean, it's no good anymore, but that was his only goal.
Yep.
He had to make sure to go back and get it. But he was willing to give it away as he was going, because, like, you're right, he didn't think he was going to make it out of what they were
No,
doing.
no, never thought he would. And, there's this, it's another film that dealt with a lot of censorship. When it was released in the United States, it was missing up to 40 minutes of material, if not more.
This is not a
There was
movie.
two
And
reasons to take it out. Number one, they felt that it was overly long, which, yeah, it's overly long, but it's needed. It's an
yeah,
imperative thing. But also the amount of what people felt was anti-American sentiment in the film, which I think is very, evident. If nothing else, just looking at how the SOC exists in the film and
yeah.
how, big business, is literally, it's preying off the unfortunate. That village survives because of the SOC and the oil rigs. Um, and they're not doing anything to help the village. They're just keeping it going just to, have expendables.
And a very good point to that, like the anti-American sentiment to the movie. Um, it's amazing. It's amazing to me that they want to cut out 40. They wanted to cut out 40 minutes to this movie, and you're right, none of it could be cut out, and you can't say that about many movies.
No.
Um, a lot of movies, like, I always find something like, hey, I don't think you really needed that scene. Like, it didn't really do anything. But Wages of Fear, every scene was important. And like I said, even in the beginning, when I'm like, well, this just seems really drawn out, but then later made complete sense. Like, I was like, thank God that's there.
Everything comes together.
Yeah.
Um, I won't mention it too much because it's everything, but Freak and Sorcerer, which is the remake, is very good and in certain ways is even more nihilistic. But it is shorter and it just doesn't have the feel that Clouseau is able to give you when you go about 30 to 40 minutes of just plot. And then the rest of the film, it's one thing after another as you're following that road. And it feels like 300 miles. It feels
Yeah.
like you've gone 300 miles. Sorcerer does not. I mean, they cut down the amount to like 200 miles, so literally, but it doesn't feel like you've gone 200 miles.
Yeah.
Clouseau makes it, you, by the end of that film, you feel like you have been in one of those trucks.
Yeah. Absolutely. And for in most cases, yeah, you absolutely have been, because you are there for about 2 hours of the movie.
Yep.
You're in one of those trucks, and you're
Or
feeling
in
every.
oil.
Oh
And
my God.
that supposedly was real oil. Both Vanel and Yves Montand had severe conjunctivitis afterwards because Clouseau had them in actual oil.
And again, I don't want to give up too much, but that scene where he runs him over, and he has to. It's so, because it's so slow,
Mm.
And I'm like, it's funny. It was reminiscent of the joke in Austin Powers with the steamroller, where it's like, just get out of the way.
Yeah.
And then, but there's no joking in this. It's a very
No.
powerful scene, and you're just like, the desperation and Mario to get through.
Mm-hmm.
He's willing to do this is so intense. But then everything about it, and even the character of Linda
Mm-hmm.
was fantastically done. And I looked her up, and I forgot her name, but
Is that Vera Clouseau?
Vera Clouseau. Yeah.
It was Clouseau's wife.
Oh, it was Clouseau's wife.
Yes, and she was only in 4 other films. They were all Clouseau films.
Wow. Yeah, because she was
Yep.
in Lady Diabolique, which is was remade as well.
Mm-hmm.
And she did fantastic in this movie. She was so good, and I had never heard of her. Not to the point of recognizing her. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And she was just fantastic in the movie. But I wanted to ask you about that ending when she faints. What was that to you? Like, I didn't. I understood, like how it kind of coincided with Mario driving off the cliff. But like, why was the faint? Was that ever really explained, or
Not really, in my opinion.
yeah?
I mean, unless it was just
Supposed to be she felt it, or something?
almost like, maybe it was a way to. I mean, by the end of it, the film were wanting to faint.
Yeah, true.
Maybe that's a release in itself. Which brings up next thing I wanted to ask you about this. What do you think about the ending with Mario? I've heard some different things about this.
I didn't feel cheated, which you would think in some movies like this, some people I could see where some people would feel cheated. The guy, you feel like you had one. You feel like you had a win. You're celebrating like the town is at the end of that movie. But at the same time, too, he ran over his friend.
Yep.
To get this done. This is not a man who should survive the world.
Mm-hmm.
In a weird way, if that makes sense to me. It makes sense because, I mean, you had Luigi, who was probably the best of them all.
Mm-hmm.
Bimbo was probably the second best of them all, and Mario being the third, if we had to rate them. But even Mario became the worst during this whole process. So for him to go home like that, and the way he is, the way he acts, who he was in the beginning of, like, she's scrubbing the floors and he's just kind of like has his hand touching her, and like he just kind of always had this air of like above everybody else. And that definitely, when Joe came to town, came out even more. Yeah. So it's the way he had to go out, I feel like. He had to kill himself by being that narcissistic in a way. Like, I made it through. Like, you didn't make it through. You're not home yet.
No.
You're on your way home.
It's a carelessness.
Yeah.
That, in certain ways, a carelessness of trying to exist outside of his own means. He has been, maybe there is something to him being dealt. He probably did a lot to bring himself where he is, but maybe that was partly his destiny, and he can't escape his destiny as the other 3 men couldn't.
But he ultimately, all 4 of them escaped where they're at. They wanted out of the town. They did not want to be there anymore, and they had dreams of this getting them out. But they also, you're right, they knew that they were never going to make it. But
how they act with each other, especially Mario, whenever it's getting to the point, there's that point in which they're the washboard road, and their truck starts getting so dangerously close to the other truck, and Mario just looks there and goes, "It's it." Not like, "Oh no," like, "This is it. We're going to die." Just flat out, not any emotion at all. To give you an idea of what the mindset is.
I do feel like I do love the fact that Luigi and Bimbo in there, you never find out what set them off.
Well, a couple of things I wanted to bring up about Wages of Fear, since you really liked Wages of Fear. Number one is, do you know it's the only film that won both the Berlin Golden Bear and Palme d'Or the same year?
No,
So it was, at the
Ever? Is
time,
it?
it was considered a great film. It wasn't one of those films that, like, over time builds up an audience. No, it was a it was considered one of the greatest films ever made at that time. And it beat out, films like Ugatsu and Tokyo Story and Shane and things of that nature, um, at all these film festivals.
Yeah, this is and you're right. This isn't a movie that right out of the gate watching it. I mean, it's a movie I'd never heard of before. I've heard of Sorcerer, but I've never heard of The Wages of Fear. And watching it only off of your recommendation, um, and just realizing, like, wow, like this is a great movie.
Oh yeah.
There was no this isn't
There's no fat to it.
yes.
And it's so easy to make a 2.5 hour long film and make it be, that it needs to be edited. And no, if you took to me, I would like to see the edited versions of the film, because I did find a couple reviews that still gave it very good reviews with a large portion of it removed. So I'd kind of like to see some of those. And it's unfortunate, now it's wonderful that we have the ability to see uncut. But I wish sometimes that they would also release the most classic cut versions for us to see, this is what, American audiences knew then. This is what we know now. So you can make kind of a comparison, but oh well.
Yeah, I mean, it would still be, you're right, because there's no fat. It would still be good, but it would take away from the story, I think. Absolutely. Because that's a great way to put it, is that it's not a film that builds up over time. It's just a good film.
Keeps going and going and going.
Yes.
It's a roller coaster ride. And I can, there are very few films that I, will look at almost anybody who say they like movies. I said, you have to see this film.
Yeah.
No question. And Wages of Fear is one of those films.
And yeah, it's funny because as I'm watching it, I was watching this on Tuesday, and I started it and I just got into it. I was like, all right, I'll start it and then I'll do my show, because I had a live show that day. And I was like, all right, I'll start it and I'll do my show and then I'll come back to it. And it's like, I think my show starts at 9:30. It's like 9:20, 21. Well, I can't turn this off. This is so good. And then I had to. There was a small part of me that was like, I think I'm going to cancel my show. I was like, I'm just going to tell them real quick, yeah, something came up, and finish this movie because I need to. I couldn't. The professionalism stepped in and I went, but I really didn't want to leave the movie. And as soon as it was done, it was kind of like, thank you very much for being on the show. It's like, I need to go finish this movie, because you feel every aspect of it and every bit of tension that they do. Like, oh my God, just Mario running back. Not Mario, Luigi running back to check on the rock. The big boulder. I was just, oh my God, what are you doing? Of course you're dead. And he's not dead. You're like, oh my God, this movie. It's just a truly fantastic movie. So I mean, fantastic recommendations. I loved it. I love both of them. They were both fantastic. Island of Lost Souls was another one that was not boring in any way, and it was just a really good movie. Just not even one of those ones, like you said, will build up over time. It's just a really good movie. But if we can, I want to end things on the Old Dark House, because you said you have a really good story, and I'd love to hear it. Oh, your sound went off. Nope. It's Friday night. I'm not worried. We'll take the time. Yeah. You can hear me, right? I wonder. Yeah, you're not muted. No. No. I wonder what happened. Huh. Let me double check something. Yeah, it's not. It says that you're. Yeah, I think it's the mic. Yeah, your mic's just not active. I don't know what happened. So weird. Mm-mm. Let me try muting you, and maybe we'll get lucky. No, still. Oh, wait. Try talking again. No, I thought I saw movement. You are muted. Okay. You're muted. No. Oh, man. I'm being kept from the story of the old dark house. We might have to save it for next time. No. Just having such a good conversation. Oh.
How about now?
Yes, there we
Okay,
go.
well, that scares me because I only have one microphone, and the other microphone, I have a friend who has been borrowing it for like 2 years. So I might have to see about getting a backup just in case.
Well, we have some people watching, and they have some comments, so I'll read them off real quick before we get into the story. So Rob G jumped in, he waves, says hello to us, and he says, I know it's a dumb movie, but my favorite villain role of Malcolm McDowell has to be Tank Girl. It was just so
good
fun.
movie.
It is a good movie, and he does a good job in it. And that's the thing I think I really like about Malcolm McDowell is he picks some fun movies. As like good English actor, prim and proper as he is, he picks some really fun roles. And then of course Christy, one of our favorites, joined in. She goes, the suspense, because we were waiting to get you back on, but you are on, and now I get to hear about the old dark house. I loved that movie, by the way. I thought that was such a fantastic. It's not even a haunted house tale. It's just, but it is just a fantastic haunted house tale, really. Just the old suspenseful dark house in the rain. So
okay, so it's really not about the old dark house. It's one of the few movies in which they both worked together.
Okay.
Everybody loved Charles Laughton. Everybody loved Boris Karloff. They got along well with everybody, but they did not get along together. They hated each other.
Really?
There's really no explanation for it besides that Boris Karloff felt that Laughton was too in his face and flamboyant. That was one of the explanations given by his old daughter. And then the other was that Boris Karloff was a very stoic person at times, loved but stoic, and this rubbed Laughton the wrong way. So it just didn't go too well. Well, there was, these restaurants, things like that have like the characters and the portraits and photographs, in Hollywood and New York and things like that, where there's a famous one, which I forget the name, I apologize, that burnt down. But there were elements of it that survived and went to auction. Well, there were two pictures that were connected that could not be removed because of how they were torn down. Like to actually tear them apart and sell them separately would have destroyed them. Well, guess who they were? Karloff and Laughton.
Really?
Yes. So she had to buy and both as one, and it's to her, she finds it amazingly funny because they hated each other. It's not a great story, but it's a story.
No, it's a good story. It is. Man, that for like two titans in the Universal world too.
And they were both universally, no pun intended, adored by everybody else.
Yeah. Wow, because you always do hear about in Hollywood they were kind of gems, like people really love them. Man, for them not to like it, I need to read into that some more.
I think it may have been like a first impression thing going horribly wrong, and it was during the Old Dark House.
It was so the Old Dark House was their first
time working
together. Project together.
They eventually worked again. Tower of London, was it?
Oh, maybe, yeah.
They did work on a film around that time period again.
You kind of had to. They were like the
Yeah.
Avengers of the time,
Mhm.
and like, yeah, you weren't going to get Quasimodo and Frankenstein's monster in a movie together, but for Universal to get all those actors together that's a huge deal. And I don't think that never actually happened, did it? Because I know Abbott and Costello meets Frankenstein wasn't Karloff, so
Mm.
I guess all the Titans really weren't together in a movie, but
Yeah,
you could see Universal always making sure they were paid well enough to be together.
exactly. Or they were working literally on one stage versus the other. And that's why you have a lot of photographs of these titans, around each other, because they literally could like walk around a set and they'd be, seeing
Yeah,
their friends.
absolutely. And yeah, it's just that's amazing to me that they didn't like each other. I need to read into that a little more. How did everybody get along about Bela Lugosi though?
I've heard nothing but wonderful things about okay, Lugosi's interesting. Lugosi was a very giving person to the point that it kind of ruined him. He was used a lot. He loved the extravagant life, but also wanted all of his friends to have an extravagant life too. And he also made very, very bad business choices. And eventually, he had several failed marriages. And of course, the addiction came in, and that's where he ended up in the lowest level that he was. But no, Lugosi really wanted to be liked too.
Mm. It's like the little brother of Karloff and Don.
Yeah.
So, and
But they had a very, very good relationship. Very, very good relationship.
that's a great story. If we could do that, what we should do? We should do in October. Come on and do a show dedicated to the old monster movies.
That would be really, really cool. I
Yeah.
think if you just wanted to look at the ones that Lugosi and Karloff did, or you want, I mean, there's so many different angles you could take.
Oh yeah, and oh, man, we should get together and figure that out. Let's do that because
Hmm.
hey, I'll always have you on. You know that,
Well,
Trevor.
thank you. I thank you for having me on. It's something I haven't done these very much at all. So this
Well, I
is
love you
new to
taking
me
this.
that I'm like, hopefully I'm saying things that are worth saying.
Oh no, absolutely, and it's a lot of fun too because I'm learning a lot and I get a lot of compliments. And especially last time you were on, everybody was like, "And he knows his stuff." Like so, it's always a lot of fun to bring you
Well,
on.
thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure. It's been, I mean, just a chance that, Sasha was the one that brought to my attention originally that you were looking for people. And I got to give her an amazing amount of credit because, not just meeting another, film aficionado and lover, but another father, and
Yeah.
a person of great quality, which I'm very thankful to say is my friend. So thank you.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm again like I have so many ideas because I just want to talk about movies with you.
Yeah.
Like, what movies we got to figure out what movies to show the kids as we get, as they're getting older. Like, because I think about this a lot, and I'm always wondering, like, especially when it comes to horror movies, not just limited to that genre, but like, what age do you show The Exorcist? Not
Oh, good
because
God. 35? I
fair enough, fair enough, but like, like not even because like impact of like being scared or impact of the things that happen in that movie, but like where it will become memorable. Like what like my oldest is 8, so I'm definitely not going to show him The Exorcist.
Ooh,
But
that is tough. It's actually interesting. I saw The Exorcist for the first time when I was about 10.
yeah,
And it left, I always was like, this is one of the scariest films ever made. It's one of my favorite films of all time, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it wasn't until I rewatched it with somebody who was slightly younger than myself that the thing that got me, that made me go, oh, I don't want to show this to my kids until later, were the scenes that involved the medical procedures done to Reagan. Frightening,
yeah,
real frightening versus anything else in that movie. Whether it's that, the crucifix scene, no, 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 spinal tap scene. Oh,
It is, and
Yeah.
it's funny that you say that, and because as it's gone on, the religious factor of the movie, I think, is
Mhm.
becoming less. They were talking about rebooting it or remaking it
Mhm.
for next year,
Mhm.
and a friend of mine that brought it up, and I was like, "Is it going to have the same impact?" Because the religious factor isn't the same. Like the Catholic Church doesn't follow exorcism like it used to.
Mhm.
So it's not as prevalent, and people don't really think of demons in that way anymore. So will that be a factor? Because back in the day, that's how they thought about things. Demons could
Yeah.
get inside of you and possess you. So to see a movie like that freaked people out on a very
Mhm.
intense level. So I'm wondering how impactful a movie like this would be. But those scenes, the medical scenes, like you said, that is the scariest thing now, because how many times do people go through that? I mean, the
I
medical.
know, and you don't want to. I also kind of wondered watching it if it was also me watching it through the eyes of a parent, watching a child go through all these medical tests and things like that, and uh, the strain that Ellen Bernstein's character is under as being a parent that sees a sick child but does not know what's going on. That yet again brings that whole element of with age. I don't understand when somebody says, "Well, I can watch a movie once and I never want to see it again." I revisit movies as I get older because they have so many different layers.
Yeah, and that was another one to this point. Is sorry if I'm taking up your time. I just
Oh
it's
no, no,
thought
please.
popping in, but The Shining. When I was a kid, that movie was boring.
Mhm.
But the older and older I get, and the idea of losing your faculties, or to become like, I know the theme isn't dementia, but like as you get older and you think
Mhm.
about things like that, and the forgetfulness, and like how your mind changes, addiction coming into
Mhm.
play, um, it's frightening. That movie
Yes.
frightens me when I watch it, and so like I needed to be an adult before I appreciated that movie. You know,
Mhm.
and it kind of went in a way that I found it boring as a child. When I started getting into filmmaking, I watched it from a filmmaking standpoint. It was great, but the story just still didn't stand out to me. And then I got in my 30s and I rewatched it, and I'm like, wow, okay, this is a lot more
Mhm.
impactful than I had originally seen, as I had originally seen it. But I will say, like, to your point of being a parent, there are movies I actively avoid now
Yep.
after having kids. And one of them, I don't think I'll ever bring myself to watch it just because of the content. Now, I'm not, it could be the best movie ever made, but that movie Cargo with Martin Freeman.
Oh wow, I haven't thought about that in a bit. Yeah.
Um, and just how he's bit, he's going to become a zombie. So he has to find
Mhm.
somebody to leave his daughter with who will raise her right
Mhm.
before he changes. I don't think I'll ever be able to watch it,
Mhm.
because that movie came out the year my son was born. And I was just like, no, I was like, I cannot watch this.
It's kind
Uh,
of like the other way around. What was the name of the one with that Schwarzenegger did about his daughter turning into one?
oh, Maggie,
Maggie is another one.
it's another one.
Very
Yeah,
well done that I don't know if I'd never want to watch again.
and yeah, Train to Busan is another one. Like,
Mhm.
great movie, fantastic. Don't think I could ever watch it again because it's
Mhm.
just heartbreaking. Um, but then you watch something like One Cut of the Dead, which when you finally get to the end of it and you realize the parenting theme to it is so beautiful. You just I can watch that over and over again, and it every time I watch it, it goes from, yeah, okay, this starts out as a horror movie, but it's not. It's because there's so many layers to it. I don't know if you've seen that one, but if you haven't, you should.
No, I want to. It's been on a list.
Especially being being the father of a daughter,
Mhm.
and I think it's not just, it's just parenthood in general. Like, we
Yeah.
all, doesn't matter the gender of our child, we want them to be happy, healthy,
Mhm.
and you just love them. So it's just in that movie, it's a father and daughter's relationship, but it's such a beautiful thing. Like, I please let me know what you think about that when you watch it. I
Yeah,
think
definitely,
you
definitely.
would definitely love it. But yeah, we could talk about movies like this all day long.
Yeah, just the idea of talking about specific films that you find great love for, and how your children react to them is something that fascinates me, and just alone.
Yeah,
So,
it's.
and that's a whole other subject.
I'm just trying to think of like outside the genre, outside the horror genre, like movies like that too. Like Terms of Endearment was one. I don't know why it
Oh, yeah.
always stuck with me. Because even as younger, I saw it when I guess when I was around 2021,
Mhm.
and it's so well acted. And at the time, I was doing acting, so I took to a lot of movies that are really well acted. That Kramer versus Kramer, things like
Mhm.
that. That now I don't think I could. I don't think I could watch them because they were so well acted
Mhm.
that the stories in them are heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Losing in children and those themes and such. And yeah, parenthood really screws you up when it comes to.
It's interesting. I mean, it opens your eyes up to everything, around you, and that goes to everything that we ingest, whether movies, whether it be books, whether it be music, because it's we have a new dimension to ourselves, but also we start thinking about, well, I'd like to share this with, and we have somebody now or some people now that we can share with. They may or may not like it, but we now and we've created these people that we can share them with. So
Yeah, there's a good book. It's a short read, but it's like a father wrote it. His name is David Gilmour. It's called The Movie Club.
okay.
And it's about his son gets into some trouble. I think he gets kicked out of school but he has to take him in, and he's divorced from the son's mother, and the mother's just kind of like, I can't deal with it. You got to take him in. So he takes him in, and the only rule he has for him is every Friday night they have to watch a movie together,
Hmm.
and they have to have their own movie club where they watch a movie and they talk about it. And he documents through the book all the different movies they watch and how it brought him and his son closer,
Hmm.
and ultimately helps his son stay out of trouble. And it kind of ends in such a way where it's like a bittersweet, where it's like they don't really have the time to do it anymore because now his son's a father, and
Hmm.
things like that. But it brought them to like a real closeness, and it's a beautiful story. You should definitely check it out.
Definitely.
Because I reread it after having kids, and I was like,
Mhm.
this hit me a lot more. I mean, it
Mhm.
hit me before, but it makes way more sense now. So I think you'd appreciate it, though.
Cool.
Yeah, man. Anytime you want to come on the show, and
Yeah,
talk,
anytime you would
do it.
have me, as I said, thank you so very, very much. As I said, I haven't done many of these, so the fact that we enjoy talking, that's great,
Yeah, man.
wonderful. We've
I will get with
discussed
you,
before a few other ones, so
and any other shows. Anytime you want to come on, you're always welcome. But
okay. Well, thank you.
I do enjoy this, and so let's. I'll message you, and let's set something up where we can maybe do this more often, where we get a nice. Let's just talk about movies and enjoy it,
It
because
sounds great.
I love your recommendations. Absolutely.
I adored visiting your recommendation, and actually got me out of a non-noir into I want to start digging further into noir.
Yeah, there's definitely some good ones. Gems. Have you seen the original DOA?
No.
That you'd love it,
Okay. Because
because
I actually love the remake.
the remake is great, but it was
Yeah.
done perfectly in the original. And it's been essentially that's been remade, especially on TV shows, so many
Hmm.
times on detective shows. But the original, it'll blow you away. I think you'll really like it. But yeah, you should check that out, and I definitely want to hear your opinion on it. But yeah, absolutely. Thanks for coming on the show, man. And let's do this
Yeah.
again. Like I said, I'll message you and we'll set it up, because we got lots more to talk about, I'm sure.
Definitely. Well, thank you so very much. And it's always a pleasure talking to you, Meg.
Thanks, Trevor. You take care, buddy.
Have a good night. See ya. Thank
Night,
you.
man. Well, thanks everybody for joining in. Trevor is always a lot of fun to talk to. The guy knows his stuff. Chrissy, I saw what you wrote. When I worked at Kim's Video in New York City, we had an entire section called The Old Dark House in homage to the movie, that was composed of films in which characters were stuck in single setting, struggling against some foe or element, etc., to get out. One of my favorite sections to pull at random from. I love that idea. Oh man, that's a fantastic thing to talk about, and we should talk more about that. Chrissy, I want you to come on the show. I want to talk about your art. I want to talk about movies. If you're up for it, you're always welcome. But thank you, everybody, for joining in tonight. It's always a fun time really talking to Trevor. I was really looking forward to this week, especially after watching his recommendations. So thanks again for joining in. Sorry about my camera. It was being a pain in the butt all day, and I'm trying to fix it, but it just I couldn't get to it right before. So thanks for bearing with me and enjoying the show. And I will talk to you guys next week. We have special guests from the Mutant Fam, the Last Drive-In Fam, coming on the show. So be sure to look out for that. We have lots of fun stuff. Remember, August 30th starts Star Trek Week. The whole week on thescenesnubs.com, every show is dedicated to Star Trek. And we have live shows every night that week. We're doing a live reading of a Next Generation episode on the 30th. The 31st, we're having a panel, The World of Star Trek. We're going to bring on Star Trek fans and experts to come and talk. The Scene Snobs podcast with my special guest host, Joe Loud. The Behind the Box podcast, which is all Star Trek episode, especially the cultiest ones. Rob Paints the Movies is going to be a Star Trek character. And then we'll have the showcase with Star Trek fans coming on. We're going to be some of us will be in costume, but we're going to be playing trivia games, and all that. And we have other podcasters coming on and other fans and things like that. And I will have a special interview for that Saturday from somebody who was on Star Trek and writes for the Star Trek magazine. So I am very much looking forward to it. So thanks again for everybody who joined in. Until next time, I am the Scene Snob. Check out thescenesnobs.com, and we have our whole schedule and everything up there. And make sure you're hitting subscribe on our channel because that helps us big time. And tell your friends. Thanks again, and everybody take care.